Welcome to the Just Baseball Show. It is Tuesday, February 15th, and I'm joined with Aram, Leighton, and Ethan Budowsky. We have a couple things to go over before we play general manager with the Miami Marlins, and I have two perfect people to do it with. Aram comes from Locked On Marlins. He's always been a Marlins Miami guy. And of course, Ethan Budowsky writes for justbaseball.com covering the Marlins. What's up, boys? Post Super Bowl, I am not feeling great. I just came back from Vegas, as you could probably hear it in my voice, but my Rams won the freaking Super Bowl. How you guys doing?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll not. I mean, better and worse than you, right? Like, we're about to talk about the team that we grew up watching that has not won a World Series since our brains really can remember anything, which is, like my memory starts at 2005 and on. So yeah, you just got a Super Bowl. Our football team that we grew up being a fan of is also in shambles. It's bad across the board except for basketball. So I was going to ask you, have you ever seen two Marlins fans in the same place?
It's very rare. It's very rare because I mean, like, generally, how many Marlins fans are there? But Ethan, how are you, brother? It's Valentine's.
I'm doing good, man.
It's Valentine's Day. We're recording on Valentine's Day to post tomorrow. Ethan's got a Valentine's dinner after. Jack McMullen is not here. He's talking, with his beautiful girlfriend, while Aram and I, we're talking Marlins, and that's our vibe.
Beautiful co-hosts
meeting up for dinner afterwards. You two taking each other out to a romantic dinner. No, I had to make sure to get the pod in, and then Valentine's Day come after the pod. We all know how the priorities lie. But no, I thought the game was really good last night. I really haven't been able to stop thinking about Aaron Donald making that final play, sealing the deal, just how poetic the whole thing was. The Rams are a really lovable champion. It's the first year in a while I've actually enjoyed a Super Bowl because Brady wasn't in it, and I could just kind of sit back and relax and enjoy. But I'm itching now that football's over. I'm really itching for some baseball. This morning, I thought about baseball and I was like, wow, I need any kind of fixing I can get. So was really happy when he sent me a text today to come on and talk some ball. So,
and I wish we could have the classic, it's baseball season as soon as the Super Bowl ends. But of course we are still in a lockout, but I feel like at Just Baseball, we kind of pretend it's not happening and we just still go through our predictions because we don't care. We know a season's going to happen. What are you guys feeling right now when it comes to the lockout? Aram, do you think that we're going to start April 1st opening day? Like, if I gave you a line, over under 161 and a half games played this year, are you taking the over or the under?
Over. I'm still I'm the optimist here. And I think, people might laugh sometimes with how optimistic I've been about it, but even with the move Saturday, I think each side is incrementally starting to get closer to where they need to be. And it's just a matter of timing. I think we're going to see spring training delayed, but I don't think the season will be impacted. Like, they're going to get to where they need to go. And as the closer we get to it, the more we'll see both sides give. I think we'll see the players give the most we've seen so far on the next, return offer from them.
Ethan, what do you think? Over under 161 and a half.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, I was talking to a buddy of mine and I said, I think that the worst case scenario was that they play 150 games. And maybe I'm a bit skeptical, but I'm starting to think that might be best case scenario at this point. I understand that all they would really have to do is kind of cut spring training down, but I'm not sure how happy the league is going to be about that. I mean, I think spring training can be cut down anyway. But I don't know. I really there's these talks are moving really slowly, and I feel like eventually maybe they'll hit a point where things kind of speed up. But I definitely think we're in for at least a spring training delay. I mean, that seems to be where we're headed. I mean, pitchers and catchers were supposed to report this week, I think. And here we are, obviously. So I wish that I felt better about it because I would love to be down in Jupiter, hanging out with my reporter friends and with Jazz Chisholm and the guys. But unfortunately, I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to head down there because they're the owners are taking their sweet time, that's for sure, and they are the ones that are, it's them doing it and they're taking their sweet old time. So I'm pretty fed up, but we're gonna play baseball. I mean, some people are like, oh, we're not gonna have a season at all. We'll play baseball, and we'll play baseball before the All-Star break for sure. If anything, I think it'll kind of leak into April, but I think that's the worst case.
I would take the over 161.5. I do think that we're going to play all 162. I feel like, with the COVID shortened season, the amount of money that was lost, they're just going to lose out on so much money and just fan engagement. Because if we actually don't play all 162, it's going to be horrific for the league.
Yeah. Really bad look. Really bad look.
And I'm also wondering if this might, because you guys know there have been talks for years and years and years about shortening the season, maybe to 144 games, possibly 150 games. I'm curious, Aram, do you think that if let's say we do only play 150 games, do you think it could possibly set some sort of precedent moving forward that says, hey, maybe the season should be shortened a little bit?
It's funny. We saw MLB use the COVID situation to cut the draft down, because that was something MLB always wanted. And it was an opportunity to cut it to 5. And now we're back to 20, and we haven't really bumped up from 20. So I could see in a situation where if the season was cut short, that it could open the floodgates a little bit. And I think that's another reason why the players are going to have a little bit more urgency here to just get to 162, because I still think they prefer, the 162, as crazy as that sounds. It's more money for them. So I think we'll have it happen. But yeah, if we see the season cut down, I think there's a scenario where, they'll say, hey, this worked out fine. Like, why don't we try this again and just expand the playoffs instead? Which, I think definitely favors the owners with how much money the postseason brings in.
Absolutely. So Ethan, what do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that fans, kind of obviously they're the drivers of interest in the game, right? And if fans are fed up with 162 and they go down to 150, maybe like a 145 number, something like that, and all of a sudden the fans all get really excited about it and feel like it's a little better. But at the same time, that's in the grand scheme of things, it's only, if you go down to 150, it's only like a week and a half of baseball. Like, that's not that much of a difference to the season, so I think fans are just going to kind of be like, we can do with the extra week and a half of baseball. It's not a big deal. But I'm an advocate for, why would you want the season to end? People always complain about games being long.
Facts.
Why do you want games to be long? Who cares if the Super Bowl runs 4 hours? Why do you want the Super Bowl to be over? You know what I mean? So I just feel like that 162 number, that's how it is. And it's a good, it's,
you don't have to watch them all
long.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch them all.
No one's making you watch them all.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But
we watch them all though.
But like,
exactly. We do.
You don't have to watch 140. Yeah, take Mondays off.
Take Mondays off, whatever. But gentlemen, we have 2 of the best Miami minds that I could find. So let's play general manager with the Miami Marlins. And first, I want to give you guys the 60-second rundown of the 2021 season, and then we'll break straight into it. So the Miami Marlins open up the 2021 season with a 74.5 win projection. They just came off a playoff berth in 2020, which was the first time they made the playoffs since they won the championship in 2003. But they underperformed in 2021. They finished 4th place in the NL East with a 67-95 record. The offense was the big issue here. This team finished with the 2nd fewest runs scored and tied for 26th in WRC+. Although the team offense wasn't very strong, we did see encouraging performances from rookie Jazz Chisholm and Jesus Sanchez. But the pitching is what is starting to get people really excited. They finished 11th in ERA and 8th in FIP as a staff, behind young studs like Sandy Alcantara and NL Rookie of the Year runner-up Trevor Rogers. Pablo Lopez has also really established himself as a very strong 3, even though he just threw over 100 innings. The Marlins bullpen was strong as well. They finished 7th in ERA and 6th in FIP, behind the performances of Dylan Floro, Richard Blyer, and Anthony Bender. It's a steep climb to the playoffs, especially in a division that has the 2021 World Series champion Braves and the Mets adding Max Scherzer. But with a few big moves, we could see the Marlins enter the conversation in 2022. So before we get into a lot of the moves that we think the Marlins should make after the lockout is finished, let's go through a lot of the moves that they've done so far, maybe give it a grade, talk about it kind of briefly, and then we'll get into some roster construction and we'll play the role of Kim Nang. So Aram, what is your favorite move that the Marlins have made this offseason so far?
I'm so glad you asked me favorite and not least favorite, because
there's
there's a great move, there's a bad move, and there's a move in the middle. Thank you for the great one. I'll go with Jacob Stallings. That move is just, it was so good for the Marlins. And we had talked about Wilson Contreras or a bunch of other really more offensive minded catchers. And yeah, I could definitely get behind the offensive boost and maximizing, the production any way possible. But what I'm really excited about with Stallings is he's the best defensive catcher in baseball right now. And, he's unbelievable framer, didn't have a single pass ball. I mean, the kind of confidence that's going to give guys like Jesus Luzardo, and then also the advantage that it gives to Sandy Alcantara when you're stealing more strikes from him at the bottom of the zone with those sinkers, stealing strikes for Trevor Rogers. And remember, this is not just bringing in Stallings. It's taking what is the biggest dumpster fire of a catcher situation and bringing in Jacob Stallings, right? So you're taking the worst defensive catcher in baseball, arguably, in Jorge Alfaro, and bringing in Stallings. Then you're taking a situation where, you look at Stallings, 95 WRC plus, people would be like, oh, that's 5% below average. But catching position in baseball was 89 WRC plus. So he's actually about 5% above average. And then compounding that, the Marlins got a 63 WRC plus from their catching position last year. So think about that. They get a 32% bump, essentially, or 30+% bump to their catching position in offensive just production. That's massive. I mean, this is going to be a boost that really transcends whatever you're going to see in the advanced statistics and anything like that, because it's from where they were to where they are. I think it's just going to be such a big difference. And they didn't give up that much. I love Kyle Nicholas. I'm a big Kyle Nicholas fan. Just had him on the call up. He's a great prospect, but the Marlins have a million pitchers. Zach Thompson's a good back end, big league starter, I think. But again, they don't need him. And Connor Scott is probably a fourth outfielder. So I was great. I was very happy with that move.
Ethan, first of all, Aram, I like your restraint on talking about Connor Scott, because I know you and I have talked about him a lot, but I like your restraint there. No, I'm going to go before I get to what I think was my best move. I'll talk about Stallings for a second, which is I was one of those people I was the biggest advocate for Wilson Contreras, because my philosophy on baseball is score as many runs as possible. Who gives a shit about defense sometimes? But at the end of the day, Stallings will be the best defensive catcher. And like Aram said, going from watching Sandy Leon and Jorge Alfaro and whoever else they were throwing out there at the plate to watching Jacob Stallings will still be a massive improvement, even if he's not the greatest offensive catcher that we've ever seen. 95 weighted runs created plus is more than enough for what he's going to provide defensively. So I kind of was sour on the move at first because I really thought they should move for Contreras. But at the end of the day, it is a really good move for them. But for me, it's not an addition that they made that's the best move of the offseason. It was locking up Sandy Alcantara.
Absolutely.
This guy is a certified ace. I mean, what he did last year, he put himself as, everybody's sexy pick as a dark horse to win the Cy Young next year. This guy's a force on the hill. Went out there. He told us before the season, I was in those spring training press conferences and he talked about 200 innings. I want to throw 200 innings. And he left no doubt about it. He was going 7, 8, 9 strong. There were games he lost a game where he lost a complete game because it was nothing, and he let up a run with 2 outs in the 8th inning. In the 9th inning, I mean, he threw 8 2/3 and lost. So yeah, that was the kind of season it was for the Marlins this year. But he was just stunning, and I really think as much as they went in on Avisail Garcia, they went in on Stallings, they went in on Wendell, they're probably going to do more business after the break, after the lockout. I think the biggest thing that says that, okay, like we're actually trying to win here, for me at least, was locking up Sandy and saying that this is going to be our guy for 5, 7, however many years of control they have him for now. And we're going to build our team around him because they've made it clear they're going to build the team around pitching. And I think it's a good strategy because they've shown that they're just going to keep replenishing. Yes, trading Kyle Nicholas for a lot of organizations, that would be a loss. But they're just going to keep drafting. They're going to keep signing IFAs. They're going to keep and they've shown they can do it. Nobody should doubt their ability to develop pitching because they're going to do it well. So their organization's going to be based on pitching. This is one of the brightest young starters in the National League. I think that was a huge vote of confidence. The fans should feel very confident about what they did in terms of this was a big move to say we actually are trying to win here. They have to make a lot of other moves before they win a lot of the fan base back over. I know that for sure. And all reports are that they're still going to be busy following the lockout. But I thought that was a really big first step. And after that, it was followed by trading for Stallings signing Garcia, trading for Wendell, which I thought were 3 good additions. They could have made better ones, but I think they will in the future. So I think it kind of kicked off their offseason. And I think that was the thing that was at the top of their priority list. And then offense comes next. And so I think that was the best move they made so far.
And I love Sandy. I mean, you guys have heard me blush about him. He was one of the 4 pitchers last year who threw over 200 innings. I mean, his fastball is electric. He's just got moxie. And I say it about guys specifically because when I see it, and he's one of those guys. We talked about it briefly, but another great move that the Marlins made, non-tendering Lewis Brinson and trading Jorge Alfaro.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was unbelievable.
Those are moving on.
That was, I could not believe they pulled that off. And the way they pulled that off is because I don't know if they planted Cervelli and the Padres organization so that they could get him to convince whatever. I don't know how they pulled it off, even for, I think it was like a player to be named later. But I
don't care what his name is. It was a good trade.
Again, moving right. Exactly.
The Padres got a really good left. Yeah, the Padres got a really good left fielder and shortstop and Jorge Alfaro.
Exactly. Who knows?
Super utility.
Who knows what kind of potential he has? But I mean, yeah, just moving on from those guys was enough, and just even getting competency at the plate, at the catcher position should provide a big boost to the offense because that 8 spot, I mean, it was ugly this year. It was ugly, and it made a lot of their games. They were not a very watchable product this year. It was really hard to watch them at times when Sandy wasn't pitching or when Trevor wasn't pitching. It was really hard to watch.
Yeah, but there are some positives, and we just went over some positives, but again, there are some negatives. And Aram, there has been one specific deal that you really, really don't like not even a little bit. What is that move?
Yeah, I'm like probably a little bit too much of a complainer on the Avi Garcia deal, just because 4 years, 53 million, like to most, to you, Peter, like you'd probably be like, okay, that's fine, whatever. Like it's the Yankees. I wouldn't care. You don't care about 453, but 453 for the Marlins,
wild too.
It's a long time. It's a long time. And Avi Garcia has never produced back-to-back seasons of a WRC plus above 100. He's only had 2 seasons with an OPS over 800. There's a lot of concerning metrics. The one thing that I will say that is encouraging is that he didn't benefit from Milwaukee as much as people would think. Like you look at the numbers and you like conventional thinking would be, oh, we got the boost from what used to be Miller Park and now is American Family Field. In fact, though, if you look at the splits, they're consistent. If you look at Baseball Savant's expected home runs, 26 of his 29 homers would have been gone at Marlins Park. That is encouraging. So maybe the Marlins really feel like he figured something out. The exit velos were the highest they've ever been. There's a lot of good things there to point towards him maybe being closer to what he was last year. I just think 4 years, 53, with what's still out there in the market, how much more money would have Nick Castellanos been? And I'm not the most excited in the world about the idea of Nick Castellanos, but he's more proven, I think, than Garcia. And
isn't he a Miami guy?
Yeah, and he's a South Florida guy. Yeah. Like how and remember that the Marlins were a team that in 2019, when Avi Garcia signed for 2 years, 20 million, I believe, they were priced out. They preferred to go 17.5 million to Corey Dickerson, and all of the reports were the Marlins thought Garcia was a bit too steep. So how was he a bit too steep there? I know he had a huge season, which kind of changed things, but did he really more than double his value, almost triple his value from the last time you saw him in 2019? Like, to me, it reeks of a little bit of desperation. And I agree, the Marlins are desperate, but I don't know if this move made sense pre-lockout. They could have waited post-lockout. Garcia probably still would have been there. And Castellanos, Conforto, like you got a lot of dudes out there, Schwarber, that I think are all in that ballpark. Castellanos probably closer to 75, 80, but still, I mean, I think they're all still in that realm. And it was a little bit of a force, but no matter what, makes the offense better. And that's the thing I'm trying to, keep my eyes on, right? Is the offense is better, but it really depends on what they do next.
And Ethan, another, I was just going to say another move that they made. And I want you again to touch on the Avisail Garcia signing, but another move they made for more offense was acquiring Joey Wendell from the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for outfield prospect Cameron Meisner. And, on at least Marlins Twitter, where I was just tracking it, it seemed like an okay move to me. But we've also talked about Cameron Meisner as a guy who has a lot of upside. And it feels like, if he goes over to Tampa, they might turn him into Willie Mays or something like that. So give me your thoughts on the Avisail Garcia and then, of course, the Joey Wendell acquisition.
Yeah. I'll start with Abaseo because I just don't want to forget what I was thinking about, which is that Aram mentioned it. Yes, it's a little bit of desperation, but the Marlins are desperate. And selfishly, as a person who watches a lot of, covers the team, I want to see more offense, and I can't watch that same kind of offense last year. And so personally, I think that if they're going to overpay a little bit for offense, it's not the worst thing in the world, because they need it so desperately, and I think that it also kind of signals to the fans, hey, we're willing to spend a little bit more than we might have to if this is going to make the offense better. So I think it was a fairly good move. I think they could have gone better. Like I'm a big Castellanos advocate. Who knows if they still go out and get Castellanos when the lockout is over. But on the Wendell deal, yeah, a lot of people like really freaked out about trading Meisner and trading Meisner to Tampa and specifically. You can't be afraid of trading guys to the Rays. Like, you just can't. Like, it's so stupid. Like, the Rays win every trade until they don't. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't win the Jake Cronenworth trade. They traded Jake Cronenworth. He's a great player. So they're going to trade good players. They're going to acquire players that you might not think are very good and turn them into good players, but they also might not. And you can't be afraid of trading with an organization if it's going to make your team better. And Wendell makes the team better now. Meisner, look, had a really good finish to last season. I'm pretty high on him. But a lot of question marks there, and they have outfield talent ahead of him. They're going to sign outfield talent. It looks like that's where they really look to be upgrading. And the thing that Wendell does is, in the same way that Stallings bumps Leon and whoever else was hitting in the catcher position. But yeah, I just think Wendell makes their lineup a lot deeper, and adds that depth that you're looking for. It's going to be a huge boost to them to have him filling in when Jazz has some bumps and bruises, when Rojas has some bumps and bruises, which happened a few times this year. Rojas played through an injured finger for a lot of the year because, he's the man, and he knew that if he was not out there, what was behind him basically. And so having Wendell fill in, I just think it was a nice, it was unexpected. Totally. I didn't expect it. I was hoping that they would add infield depth. I thought that a guy like Josh Harrison would be a really nice signing for them, but this is basically like signing Josh Harrison. Maybe Harrison's a little bit better offensively, but I like this pickup a lot for them, because they need depth. Like, they need that bottom of the roster to really improve. It gave them nothing last year. Like, the bottom of the roster that gave them anything was Brian De La Cruz, because he became the starting center fielder after the deadline. That was all they really got, like, from a position, below off the bench or anything. So I think that really, if this is a good move. He was so versatile with the Rays. He's going to be very versatile off the bench for them. And it's just making the team better and doing things to make the team better, and having to pay a price, right? Like Meisner, that's a pretty high price, all things considered, but they're willing to pay that price. That should encourage Marlins fans, because I'm done with prospect hugging. I'm done with it. I know we love our prospects on the show. I've been doing it for too long, and it's time to start making some moves. And I like them being aggressive here.
And I feel like that sentiment is pretty shared across Marlins fans. Aram, do you think the price for Wendell was too high, or?
I think it's a really good question, because I think these two things can be mutually exclusive, which was, it's weird that they decided to trade a bat, right? Like, at the end of the day, I would way rather trade any arm, aside from the premier arms. But if we're talking like middling, but I think it was Meisner or like a Dax Fulton, right? Like, and at that point, Dax Fulton's 19, lefty, really dynamic, has more upside. You're probably going to opt to keep Fulton, even though you have more arms. Judging by the way the Rays are, they love athletic outfielders. I'm guessing that for them, it was like, if you're not going to trade us one of your main guys, we want Meisner, and there's not much else we want. And I'm assuming they probably asked about Burdick, and Burdick was a no-go. So the Marlins didn't have that much wiggle room outside of there. And if they're like, you want to upgrade your infield, you want to get a guy that is as impactful as Wendell, like, you got to give something up. And we don't really want any of your middle of the pack arms. We don't really want any of those guys. So I'm assuming that's kind of how it went down. And unfortunately, sometimes you got to give to get, and that's why I'm okay. If you're upgrading the big league roster, to me, there's no price that's too ridiculous, unless obviously it's the craziest lopsided trade ever. I would have preferred to go with an arm, but I can understand how things shake out. You have to go, with a bat there. And Meisner is extremely volatile, wide range of outcomes, and we could see anything happening. But as Ethan said, to get the boost there, I think is huge. One other thing that I think is really interesting, though, is I don't think the Marlins part with Cameron Meisner unless the plan is for Joey Wendell to get 450 plus plate appearances. And I really do wonder what this means for Brian Anderson's long-term future. I do have a question as to whether this means, it doesn't necessarily mean next year, could be the year after that. I'm just saying, I think that there is some questions there. Kim Ng has been very non-committal about Brian Anderson. We know that his camp has not been thrilled about that. That's been reported by Craig Mish in the Miami Herald and Barry Jackson. Like, I don't think anything's bad with their relationship, but I don't think things are rosy and clear. And I don't even think they've discussed an extension, right? So I would venture to say that I don't think Wendell is for sure not going to start there. Like, I think he could get a lot of run at third base, and I think we could see him rotating all over, but I wouldn't be surprised. So I think it's going to be a really interesting thing. But one other thought on Wendell real quick, guys, because I think you're going to find this really interesting. And this is in the piece that that would be out by the time you're listening to this on justbaseball.com about what to look for the Marlins on the other side of the lockout. You guys remember what happened with Willy Adames post trade about just how bad he was at Trop and how he blew up and how he just started raking, which again is kind of a trade where the Rays didn't really come out winners. Joey Wendell last year at Tropicana Field, 215, 273, 315, 2 home runs, a 69 WRC plus. Joey Wendell on the road, 311, 361, 519, 9 home runs, a 138 WRC plus. We know that some players are really impacted by Tropicana Field. I mean, Willy Adames was trying to play with like weird lenses that would like change the light for him. Joey Wendell can be even remotely close to that road. Joey Wendell, like that's a guy that needs to be playing a lot, like 4 days a week.
I love that. The only problem is in Miami, at least, I mean, it's a graveyard. It's just such an enormous park. So it's not like he's going from Tampa Bay to Milwaukee where it's incredibly easy to hit. He's going into another really tough pitcher's park. So excuse me, you can just hear it in my voice. I'm still in Vegas mode.
Vegas is on you.
Yeah. So if I'm just saying stupid shit, it's because I've averaged 3 hours of sleep for the last 4 nights. So bear with me here. Need a little bit of a cough. But I'm back and we're talking baseball again. Before we get in and start playing Kim Ng's role as the general manager and start making some additions to this team, I want to check the pulse of Kim Ng's checkbook, because the Marlins have came out and said that they want to spend, but it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to be like, oh yeah, the Marlins will give Carlos Correa $300 million because, they could need an upgraded short, but they did extend Miguel Rojas 2 years, $10 million. So that's probably going to be the starting shortstop in 2022. But give me some kind of give me some expectations for this offseason after the lockout. Like, how much money do you think Kim Ng's going to spend?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is it seems like they've got another Avi Garcia type deal in them, which is fascinating to me because I'd almost rather go big on one deal and then trade for another. Seems like they're kicking the tires on a Schwarber, they're kicking the tires on a Castellanos, but are prepared to be priced out of those deals. So that kind of tells me they're looking 40, 50 million range. I'm more of the belief of making an impact trade for a bat and then maybe just spending a little extra on the bullpen. I'm not normally a big proponent of spending on the bullpen, but if you go trade for a bat, maybe you go give Kenley Jansen 2 years, $35 million. That's palatable if you don't really spend elsewhere. And I mean, Jansen's numbers were insane last year. Yeah. We'll get to the bullpen, but I think you're in a weird middling range right now. And it would only really make sense if they were ponying up for Marte, unless it's Schwarber or maybe Castellanos. I don't really see a reason for them to stretch themselves out because I think they're going to be really in that 40 to 60 million range. I don't see them going any further than that.
I had a lot of people that advocated. I saw a lot of people advocating for signing a guy like Seager, Correa, one of the bigger names on the market. That was never in play. That never should have really been in play. Like, I don't think that the Texas Rangers are going to suddenly be like a great team because they threw a bunch of money at Seager and Simeon. You know what I mean? Like I don't necessarily think the Tigers are going to be a great team because they have Javier Baez. You know what I mean? Like they're basically the Tiger. I think they signed who did they
Eduardo
sign?
Rodriguez.
Eduardo Rodriguez. Thank you. Like I don't think that they're any better. They're basically the Tigers from last year with Javi Baez and Eduardo Rodriguez, right? So I don't, if the Marlins spend all their money in one place, they're basically the Marlins from last year with Seager or with Correa or with whoever, right? But they do have, like Aram mentioned, trade pieces. And so I think that I think they're going to make one more big free agent signing. And I guess I'll save for later who I think it's going to be. But they could make another trade. They totally could.
I think they will.
I think they will too. When I came into this offseason, my ideal offseason for them was, I think it was like trade for Contreras, sign Castellanos, trade for Reynolds. I think they can get 2 impact outfielders via trade or via free agency. They already got, I think, Aviseo might not be the biggest name, but I think he's going to be an impact outfielder for them. And then they can still do it through trade or free agency. And I think this goes to Aram's point that he just made a little while ago. I've been making this point all day with the Rams, and this is a bit of a weird comparison, but I think it holds steady. There's no price that you shouldn't pay for upgrading a quarterback, right? The Rams just showed that with upgrading Matt Stafford. There's no price that the Marlins right now should not pay to significantly upgrade their offense. And whether that's via trade, going and getting a guy like Brian Reynolds, Katel Marte, unless you're like literally auctioning off your future and trading like Yuri and Max and Salas and Watson all in one deal.
Yeah.
Then there is no price this team should not pay to really upgrade this offense, because I do think that with this pitching staff, they're that close to being a playoff contender. Maybe not necessarily a World Series contender because they'll have to make a bunch of refinements down the roster. But if they just add a little bit more offense, they're knocking on the playoff door for sure. And it's only going to take 1 or 2 more acquisitions after the deadline to get them there.
And I was going to ask you guys, all right, so where are the positions of need? Where should we attack? And it's fairly obvious. Yes. We're attacking this offense. They don't need to add a starting pitcher. They've got like 9 of them.
Yeah.
Aram, to your point, I think they do need to add to the bullpen, but I don't think you need to go really crazy. I mean, dude, you just go through. I know in high leverage situations, you guys were actually texting me that. And that's why I'm having guys like you on, because you look at the bullpen, 7th in ERA, 6th and 5th, but in high leverage situations, they actually weren't that great. So I agree, add to the bullpen, but I don't think they have to go crazy, but we need to make this,
Peter?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not a huge believer in like the Kirby Yates deal that he just got, or the Hendricks deal or whatever, like all these big money bullpen deals. But I was watching, I was covering that Giants Dodgers series for us, right? And I'm watching them pitch. And when it gets to the end of the game and you face Trinan and Knebel and Jansen, you have no fucking chance, okay? And it's a different game. It was a different game from the game the Marlins were playing, because everybody out there in the playoffs was sending in guys that were throwing high heat with big breaking stuff. And I really like Dylan Floro a lot. I don't, he was pretty good for them in high leverage situations this year. He finished the year as the closer because they moved on from a lot of guys, and he was pretty good, but they could not find a solid closing option all year long. It was a huge issue for them. Yeah. And I just think that if you can get a guy that has some power stuff like a Jansen, somebody that's going to come in to the back end and throw big time heat and a big breaking ball up there, I would pay for it. I think Jansen would be a great option for them, but also they have a lot of guys in-house that I think they could move to the pen. Now, I'm not ready to move like a Meyer or anybody like that to the pen, but I think there's a couple guys that we'll talk about when we get to the bullpen that they can move that can really make them better at the back end of the bullpen, because they do have power stuff in the system.
So Ethan, I have a question for you, because I mentioned on the last podcast, it might've been last week, and it wasn't an indictment on Max Meyer. It was more thinking that with the surplus of 7-8 arms, all really solid guys, even with Sixto Sanchez, I know he's still dealing with injuries, but he's at least going to get another shot in that rotation.
And you should.
Do you think it's palatable if Max Meyer were to come up, because he's got 2 pitches that are MLB ready already, like the fastball
100%.
slider combination, filthy. Would it make sense to put him in a Michael Kopech type role just to start, really just get the wheels turning on Max Meyer, see really what you got, and then you could kind of, play it by ear. Let's say he never really develops a third pitch, and I'm not saying that could happen, but it could happen. Maybe the changeup doesn't actually form into anything, and then he's maybe your closer, maybe Michael Kopech. But then let's say he does develop that changeup, and then you can move him into the starting rotation. Does that make sense to put him in a Kopech type bullpen role, not a 7th inning guy?
Absolutely. And they haven't been inclined to do that necessarily. They really want their guys to come up as starters. Like they've tried with Jordan Holloway for so long. And Jordan Holloway is
but he's not that good.
But he's got power stuff, and I think they should try and move him. Like, he's one of the guys that they could easily flex back there. But if they're in playoff contention, like, come July, September, or August, September, if they're in playoff contention, or even if they get in, and Meyer's sitting there, and you've got 3 or 4 guys locking down the rotation spots. Like if Eddie steps up, if Sixto comes back and finds form, which I know Aram is very, very not sure about, but if they lock in, like they've got the 3 as long as Pablo stays healthy, as long as they stay healthy, they've got the 3. If they find a 4th guy for the playoffs, then now you're looking at Meyer could make a huge impact by coming up into the bullpen, and there's no room for him in the rotation, right? So I absolutely think, like I've thought about this before, I know they're going to try and make him a starter long term, and I think he can be a starter long term. But absolutely, if they're in playoff contention and they need a boost to the bullpen, there is no reason not to just give it a shot if he has a good year in AAA this year. Bring him up, put him into the pen. Now you've got a pretty big fastball and a wipeout slider. Maybe the best pitch in all of minor league baseball coming up, and I think that could be a very good. Yeah, I think that could be a very good option for them.
All right, gentlemen, let's upgrade the offense.
Let's do it.
Is Brian Reynolds available? Aram, I know it's basically impossible because the Pirates have come on and said you're going to have to give up everything. But from talking with you both, you're both willing to kind of give up everything. Let's finally trade the farm. We have this young starting rotation that's just budding, and starting pitching wins championships. And if you can add an impact bat like a Brian Reynolds, maybe an overpay would be worth it. So, Aram, Brian Reynolds, what would a trade package look like if you think they would even do it? Because we can also talk Katel Marte too, because he actually is palatable in a trade.
Yeah. Marte is someone I think who's attainable, obviously. Reynolds, the fact that the Pirates like replied back with Julio Rodriguez, I think is a little bit of posturing. I also think it shows that they're listening to somewhat of a degree. The Marlins are going to have to blow them out of the water with an offer, but I think it's clear after the Jacob Stallings deal that the Marlins have ongoing, conversations with the Pirates, and the Marlins are a team that likes to trade with like the same teams always. So I could really envision. I would be
need
cool.
Arms. Pirates need arms more than anything, and the Marlins have 60 of them. So I mean, it does make sense out of any team. If not the Mariners, it's the Marlins.
I'd give them everything, dude. Like I don't really care. Like I feel like Marlins fans might be upset about that, but really at this point, you're playing to win in the next few years. The Marlins rotation is set up to where it's going to be sustainable for a long time. So what are we hoarding pitching prospects for here when Brian Reynolds could be one of the best center fielders in baseball very soon? Like he's on his way to being that. He's controllable. He allows you go trade for Reynolds. You still got capital financially now to maybe go get a Jansen, to go make other moves. You have financial flexibility moving forward. Like it's beyond just what you give up prospect wise. Like I see people wanting to hold on to Max Meyer and things like that, but like Max Meyer is really good. He dominated through AA with one dominant pitch, which is a slider. His fastball actually got hit pretty well. I like the things we saw at the end of the year, but like there's a legitimate question of where's the third pitch? Let's see if it develops. If there's any if on a prospect, you should be okay with trading him for an impact all-star. Brian Reynolds is impact all-star. I would trade Meyer and Watson in 2 seconds. And I think it would take another piece from there. And Marlins fans, like you can let me know I'm crazy. You can tweet at me later. Like that's fine. But the way I look at it is Khalil Watson, right? Like he's going to be up there in 4 years, probably closer to 3.5. And you're hoping that he sticks at shortstop, which is more likely that he doesn't than he does. You're hoping that the bat will continue to develop, which I think it should. You're hoping that he can overcome some of the, makeup and character concerns that have really clouded his draft value and draft stock that had him slip to 16th in the draft. Like you're hoping for a lot of things there. For Meyer, you're hoping that the changeup develops. You're hoping for a few other things. With other prospects, I could play that same game. With Brian Reynolds, you're hoping for nothing. You're hoping that he doesn't have a catastrophic injury, knock on wood, that derails his career because he's already shown you what he can do and he gets better every single year. Like that's the psychology. That's a place you need to get to as a fan, I think, to try to be able to digest these trades. I think the Marlins fans are traumatized a little bit because the way the trades have gone the other way.
Yeah.
But like
Yelich.
Yeah. But like, think about it that way. Right? Like we were excited to see the hauls coming in, right? The hauls that were coming in for some of those impact players, and those hauls went to shit.
Great
like
point.
You have to be okay with it. Sometimes at the end of the day, you're trading volatility for a blue chip stock. I'm trading you a bunch of penny stocks, higher end penny stocks, maybe sometimes, because some of these guys are really good. But if you're able to hold on to Yuri Perez and you're able to hold on to some of your other guys, like this system is still loaded with dudes. You trade Max Meyer away, you have a young rotation that's guys that are just graduated from being prospects. You have still Dax Fulton, you have Yuri Perez, you have Zach McCambley. Like you still have tons of arms, still more arms than most minor league systems. I'm okay with it. And you also have a top 6 pick, right? They pick 6th in this upcoming draft. Like they're going to replenish. I would make any offer possible that the Pirates are willing to hear, and that would transcend into some other targets too.
Ethan,
that's my thing.
Wait, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have an offer. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I want to throw it at you to kind of get the ball rolling again. So I came up with something for Brian Reynolds. I'm trading away Khalil Watson. I'm trading away Max Meyer. I'm trading away Edward Cabrera, and I'm also giving them Jake Eder.
Okay, so
is that too much?
I'm not touching the major league rotation right now, personally. I'm not, because if you also deplenish the minor leagues, like you're deplenishing the minor leagues. Like if you're trading Meyer, for me at least, you're doing it because you've got it locked down in the major leagues, right? But they should consider it. I mean, they should really think about it. And it's for this reason. We just talked about it. There should be no price. They aren't willing to pay for a significant upgraded offense. And one fun fact here is that I think Barry Jackson, it was either Barry or Craig Misha reported this, is that they could have had Brian Reynolds a long time ago because there was a deal in place with the Giants for Giancarlo Stanton that got vetoed because Stanton had a no trade clause that involved Brian Reynolds. So the Marlins have been after Brian Reynolds for a long time. And this is the guy. Like, I think they need an everyday center fielder. They need a guy that's going to lock it down. This is the guy. He plays good defense out there, and he's a great hitter. He is one of the more underrated hitters in the league. I think this offseason, after such a great year, he's finally getting all that attention from around the league. He is one of the great hitters in the league, and he makes them instantly better. Like, if there's one guy that they can trade for this offseason, I think, that can make them a playoff contender by himself, it's Brian Reynolds with the other moves that they've made so far. Castellanos, they need some bullpen help. They need some whatever. If they trade for Brian Reynolds, I think they are on the door right there, because I think he would bring that much of an impact to the team.
I mean, Aram.
Now.
Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. My thing is, I do think they're going to get priced out because the Pirates' asking price is insane. But I'll say this. If I'm the Marlins and they call with Meyer and Khalil Watson and a couple other guys down the line, I'll probably say yes. It would be hard, but I'd probably say yes. And I'm going to say I'll have a take here that you guys can put on make a little Instagram picture for.
Love that.
I'm trading Khalil Watson before I'm trading Jose Salas if I'm the Marlins. I am really, really high on Jose Salas because I've seen like what he did in the complex league this year. That's what like the best hitters in minor league baseball do to the complex league. He absolutely tore it to shreds. And he had a pretty nice start once he got to Jupiter in low A. He put up some pretty good numbers, all things considered. He's like 18 or 19 years old. People can laugh at me all they want. I'm really high on Salas. They need a guy. They don't really have a third baseman in the system. They have some more athletic guys up the middle, and they have Jazz and Miggy Rowe for a few years up the middle there. I really think that they should focus on keeping Salas over keeping Watson because I'm really high on that guy. But again, if you're telling me trade both, maybe I'm saying no, but if you're taking one of the two of them and Meyer or Eater, I would probably, I would probably send it in because they have to make, if they can get that guy, they got to do it.
So Aram, you cringed at that offer. It was a fat one. It was a fat one.
That package gets you almost any player in baseball. That's really
and Brian, that just goes to show like what I think Brian Reynolds is. Like he's one of the best outfielders in baseball. Like he's an impact bat immediately. And when I'm looking at those individual players, they're ranked very highly. But Khalil Watson fell in the draft. Remember, he was a top 5 guy who fell to the middle of the first round because there was reasons why. Edward Cabrera in his first stint in big leagues, we're not giving up on him. He's got too much of electric stuff, but he had a 5.81 ERA. That was just the reality of it. You said it yourself about Max Meyer. He has one pitch right now. I would say the fastball, is still pretty good, but I mean, you said it yourself, one guy. And then Jake Eater, who has shown that he can pitch pretty well, good, solid lefty. But I don't think like when you go through them all individually and you be getting Brian Reynolds, is it that crazy to trade those four? It is.
Yes,
okay.
It's absolutely awesome.
All right, go off then.
Jake Eater was one of the best pitchers in Double-A this past year before going down with Tommy John. I mean, 1.77 ERA. He was the best southpaw out of the whole draft. If you redrafted it, he'd probably go top 10. Edward, he struggled. He walked 19 guys in 27 innings. That's something to watch for sure. I think the Watson stuff's valid. I think if you go Meyer Watson, would you go Meyer Watson Eater, Ethan? Would you do that for
Meyer Watson and Eater for Reynolds?
Yeah. Marlins fans are freaking out right now.
They would be freaking. I mean, I would talk myself into it eventually because, again, I'm sick and tired of prospect hugging. But, when you hear it, it's like, holy fuck. But
would that even
trade your 3 top prospects? You know what I mean?
Would the Pirates say yes?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like they're asking for Julio Rodriguez, and we're talking about an overpay here. I mean, are we going to do the deal or are we not?
They have to take it. Like if they don't take it, they're dumb. They have to because you're getting 2 probably frontline starters, 2 potential frontline starters and a guy in Watson who has huge upside.
I don't even know if those 3 get the deal done though.
But I don't even know either because they're being really stubborn about this.
Yeah.
And they have every right to be really stubborn, right? He's got
really good
4 or 5 years of control. He's really good. He's young. He's everything you can ask for.
Track record, Vandy guy.
That's why the Marlins should be after him as much as they can. But look, if they
you guys have a top
Marlins
5
fans
system,
are gonna freak. They're gonna freak. But again, this is what I'll say, Peter, is we talked about how Aram talked about how they're just gonna replenish, right? That's just what they're gonna keep doing. They're just gonna find another Meyer, Eater, whoever they trade.
Exactly.
They've shown the ability to do it. And it might sound ridiculous that they're just gonna magically find another Max Meyer. No, they turned freaking Zach Thompson had a good year last year.
Yuri Perez is a top 40 prospect in baseball.
Exactly.
Yuri's a stud. They have a lot. They're just going to keep loading up, dude. They're not going to stop. They're going to do
cash
it in the IFA.
in.
They're going to do it in the draft. They're going to do it however they want to do it. They're going to develop pitching no matter what they do.
Exactly. So how is
cash
it asinine, Aram? What are we talking about here?
I agree, but that doesn't mean just go nuts. I won the lottery, so I'm going to pay $1 million for a sandwich.
But
if you take out Cabrera, no,
one.
Pete, if you take out Cabrera, I would probably do it because I'm not touching if I'm trading away the 2 top pitchers, you can't get me to touch the major league rotation because those are the guys that are supposed to come in for them. You know what I mean?
I think that's totally fair. But I think I may be lower on Edward Cabrera than others.
Yeah, that's
and I think that's where it was coming from for me. Because you have 9 of them. Like I think Jesus Luzardo could be great. Like the Eliezer Hernandez. There's so many guys. So I thought, okay, if Edward came up and Sixto's still coming, if Edward came up and he was electric, then I'm like, all right, well, no. But he was like kind of horrible, like straight up not good. So, I'm not saying that it's indicative of his future success, but like he just wasn't good.
Can I tell you what it reminded me of? It reminded me of when Sandy first came up. Honestly,
he got
rocked around. He had this big time stuff, and he got knocked around. He wasn't really locating like he did in the minors. He wasn't striking a ton of people out. But there were some good signs. Like there was one game where he struck a bunch of guys out. There were still some flashes, and you saw that with Sandy when he was young. I mean, Sandy, even his first year in Miami, he wasn't striking anybody out really.
No.
And you're right, Aram. The first year he was in the Marlins system, he went up from New Orleans. They sent him back down at the end of the year. Then the next year he finally stuck for the whole year.
Bro, he was looking more like Jose Urania than he was current Sandy.
Yeah, but he just kind of like hung around and then something clicked. I think with Cabrera, it might be that same kind of thing. I'm really high on that guy. He's got it.
Here's my final offer. Here's my final offer. Max Meyer. I'm gonna go Max Meyer, Khalil, and Eliezer. Send it in.
In a heartbeat.
But the thing is, what would you rather have, Jake Eater or Eliezer Hernandez? Because I don't know if they would take.
Yeah,
I don't think they would either.
So you're even lowering the trade now, or I'm like, I don't.
If you're the Marlins, I'm looking for ways to move Eliezer immediately.
I was begging for that, dude. Yeah, I was begging for that on the Locked On Marlins podcast. Like it was a long time ago. Before last season, I was trying to trade him, but where else could you go? Like you could go get Katel and that's a lesser of the package gets it done.
Let's talk about Katel Marte then, because it's gonna take the entire farm, and maybe we're not totally comfortable with that. But if the Marlins could actually have a great offseason, let's say they trade for Katel Marte, you sign Nick Castellanos, and you sign Kenley Jansen, we're talking about the Miami Marlins, right? 100%. Because the Phillies need to add, and they haven't, their roster looks, kind of grim right now. We think the Mets will be better, but sometimes the Mets will be the Mets. The Braves, if they don't sign Freddie Freeman, they're still going to be really good, but there's some issues there. I still think the Braves are the prohibitive favorite in this division. I still love the Braves roster. I still think they're going to sign Freddie Freeman, but the reality of the fact is if they don't, they're losing their best player besides Ronald Acuna Jr. So what would a trade for Katel Marte look like, Aram?
And go ahead, Aram. Sorry.
Aram hates when I ask because
God, I really, it's funny because I've always been more open to trading Meyer than I think the average Marlins fan is.
Me too.
And I've let
gotta give to get.
I would deal Meyer in a situation here for Marte. I think, I would feel pretty confident that you can extend Marte too. Should he come? I know he comes with control, but you could probably extend him beyond that. I think you could give up something similar to the package, but not quite as much. I think you could hold on to Watson if you're giving up a Meyer. I think you only have to give up one front end guy. Agreed. But you could do like a Meyer, a Hernandez, and an Eater, or like a Meyer, Hernandez, and somebody else. And I think it gets it done because he doesn't have as much control. He's a little bit of a guy that's been banged up through the years. I think that impacts his value a tad. He doesn't quite have that prowess defensively in center field, which does concern me a little bit. But as I laid out in the article too, that you can check out, is that I think the Marlins have made it clear that they don't really care about the outfield defense, and they're going to do whatever it takes to upgrade the offense, which I'm okay with. You upgraded defensively with Joey Wendell in the fold. You upgraded at catcher. You still have Rojas at short. Jazz Chisholm's only going to be better at second base. The defense is maybe a little bit of a liability, but I'm cool with it if you're upgrading offensively. So maybe that is splitting time in center field between Marte and Garcia, and just kind of doing a little bit of an outfield rotation out there. But I don't know if I would give up for Marte, because of the control compared to some other guys, I probably wouldn't give up much more than like a Meyer and Eliezer, and then one other of those Eater types or Fulton types.
What about this one? Does this get it done? Max Meyer and Sixto Sanchez for Katel Marte. Does that get it done?
Peter, you're getting dangerous here, man. Marlins fans are going to be after your
good.
Neck.
Send it all to me. You think I'm trading with the farm? I'm trying to win now, Miami. What? You want to win now?
Do not come for Max Meyer. No, listen, dude. I'll tell you this. I love Katel Marte. Like, he's one of my favorite players across the league. And I said it earlier. Score a bunch of runs. Who gives a shit about defense, right? Throw him in center field. He's done it. He's been serviceable. I mean, he's not great, but fuck it, do it. You need to score runs, and your starters are gonna be striking everybody out anyway, right? So who cares? So
they get ground balls.
And ground balls, and you got pretty good infield defense too. You know what I mean? So I just think go, especially with Sandy. I mean, Sandy, the ball's on the ground the whole game, but I just think that this is like, I personally think that if they go for a trade in center field, they're going to get priced out on Reynolds and they're going to go for Marte. I think that's kind of what's going to happen. And I would love to see Katel Marte in a Marlins uniform. I think he would provide a huge impact for them. I mean, his numbers are so freaking good, man. You look at his numbers, like, that he had 149 weighted runs created plus in 2019. That was the year he was an all-star. He had 329. Down year in 2020, but still had 94 weighted runs created plus. Throw 2020 out the window anyway. And he had 139 weighted runs created plus. He only played 90 games last year, and he had a 909 OPS. The dude just hits, and I think he would fit really well into that locker room, into that lineup, and just bring him, play with some flair, and Miami would fall in love with this guy. And they got it wrong with Juan Marte, right? Like, they should have paid that guy. If they made the offer, they made him in free agency at the trade deadline. He's still in a Marlin uniform like he should be. They got it wrong with Juan Marte. If they don't go for Reynolds, they should not get it wrong with this Marte. I really think that this should be a strong option for them, and they should really, really look into trading for Katel Marte.
I totally agree. And I've warmed up to him more the more I realized that the Marlins, once I heard the Marlins are kicking the tires on Avi Garcia in center field, I was like, okay, screw it. Just throw Katel out there, right? Like, okay, if we don't care that much about defense, throw Garcia or throw Marte out there. And what I will say too is I just think, that there's more of an importance on like a fourth outfielder defensively, Brian De La Cruz, something like that, to be able to make strides out there defensively. The D-backs don't need Marte. He's not going to play the outfield for them because they've got Alec Thomas coming up center fielder. They got Corbin Carroll coming up center fielder. So both those guys are going to play really good outfield. So Marte would be moving to second. If you're a team that's still far from contending and could cash in and get impact prospects for your second baseman, why the hell wouldn't you trade him? The Marlins, again, have that history of trading with the D-backs. They've done it on multiple occasions. I think this makes the most sense. You don't have to make the trades that we presented that would make Marlins fans vomit for Brian Reynolds. You might be able to even pull off a deal without Max Meyer if you give up more pieces, right? Like, you could go Dax, Fulton, Jake Eater, and a few other guys. And the D-backs may prefer a package of 5 solid prospects or 4 really solid prospects. And the Marlins might be able to pull that off. I know they prefer not to trade any of their main prospects. So if you can pull off a deal where you're trading from, a package around Dax Fulton, Jake Eater, and then some other impact prospects, I think you could pull that off. And the D-backs need arms. They need arms. They need to stockpile them. They've not done well with arms in recent history. And I think that makes the most sense. He's not that expensive, and the Marlins can then go make some other moves. That guy at the top of your lineup just changes everything. Yeah. He changes everything.
So talking about trade partner, the D-backs have to be happy with how their last deal with the Marlins went down in terms of acquiring a starter from them, right? Like, everybody's really high on Zach Gallen. He's going to be really solid. And we talked about how they traded Meisner earlier, right? And I think they did that because they're going to upgrade at the major league level in the outfield. So maybe there's a couple guys they're willing to cut from that outfield, totem pole. maybe they're willing to move on from a Burdick or a Blade, and they throw one of those guys, and the D-backs think that they can really get them right in their organization. And if you do that, again, now you're adding another piece of value, of big value. You might not have to give up Max Meyer. You might be able to move a Fulton and a Blade and somebody on down the line. I think that they could make this deal for a lot cheaper than they could make Brian Reynolds. And I'm not sure how big the drop off in impact is going to be, except that Reynolds is younger and I think he has more control. Yeah. So okay. I think are you willing, how much do you value that control to the point that if Reynolds costs too much, you just drop down, you give up probably a lot less to get Marte, who is on the offensive side of the ball. I'm not sure the offensive impact is going to be much, if any, different.
Dude hits absolute piss missiles. So on my case, the GM of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Aram and Ethan, I call you guys up, and now you guys are a collective mind of Kim Nang. And I say, I will give you Katel Marte, and I want Max Meyer and Sixto Sanchez. Max Meyer has one pitch right now. Sixto Sanchez has been dealing with injury after injury, and he's still, what is he? Is he throwing from 120 feet yet?
No.
So, and that's all I want. I want those two pitchers. Is that so asinine for an impact bat like Katel Marte? That shouldn't make Marlins fans so mad. Don't you want offense? Don't you want an electric Katel Marte, who I'm hearing stories from guys who have hit in the cages with him that he goes in shirtless without warming up and hits 110 mile an hour rockets the other way without even trying? Like, don't you want that for two guys that they're not just these ultimate pitchers that you just have Max Meyer and Sixto, and that's like, oh, that's just Trevor Rogers and Sandy sitting there right now. It might not be. That could actually be, Max Meyer might be a bullpen guy, and maybe Sixto never develops, and that's an absolute steal. Mm-hmm. So that's why I made the offer.
I would do it, and I'm personally, like, I'm still holding out a ton of hope for Sixto because I saw him pitch in person. I saw him pitch, during the pandemic. I was locked into all of his starts.
Have you seen him work out in person?
Why doesn't he strike out?
Concern. That's a big
Have you seen
concern,
him train in person?
No, I haven't.
Exercise. I'm sure you've seen him Instagram in person.
I've seen him Instagram. What is he? Bobo.
Bobo.
I love Mr. Bobo. But I still I'm holding out that hope on Sixto because I saw how electric that stuff is. But if you're telling me I can get Katel Marte and it's going to cost Sixto and Meyer, and I know that I've still got Eddie Cabrera, Jake Eater, Yuri Perez, Zach McCambley, more behind Dax Fulton, and more behind them, because there's guys that we haven't even mentioned in this system that deal on a nightly basis in places like Jupiter and Beloit and Jacksonville. There are guys that are dealing that we don't even talk about, and then they're going to draft and they're going to sign in free agency.
Exactly.
They are going to I keep saying it, but they are just going to keep replenishing these arms. And at that point, trading a Sixto Sanchez, trading a Max Meyer, they'll find one of those again.
George Soriano.
My goal
George
here
Soriano's a guy we don't talk about. There are plenty of guys down there that are absolutely saucing minor league hitting.
And my goal here is not to just destroy this Marlins farm system. I'm trading away some guys that I personally, it's not that I don't believe in Max Meyer. I do believe in Max Meyer. And I feel like he's that blue chip prospect that you would trade it for something. But in those other trades, I'm looking to kind of trade from the biggest area of strength, maybe in Major League Baseball. When we're talking about the Major League roster and the minor league roster, when it comes to pitching, there are a few organizations that have what Miami has. So use that to then upgrade on the offense. So let's review as we wrap up here. So we traded for Katel Marte because Brian Reynolds over there in Pittsburgh was just a little bit too expensive. We signed Kenley Jansen to a 2 or a 3 year deal. We think that's palatable. He's one of the best, he was one of the best closers in baseball. If you don't lock him into a 4-year, $54 million, you get him at 2 or 3 years, I'm good with that. Who's the one free agent that they also need to get to be back in playoff contention?
Outside who we mentioned?
Yeah, no, well, we've mentioned Nick Castellanos. Who's the one guy that's available on the free agency market that you think we we need to add to Miami?
Like, I think conventionally fans might think it's nuts, but to me, Kenley Jansen is that guy. Like, Kenley Jansen is that guy because the Marlins bullpen, like you mentioned, Peter, it is good on a macro scale, right?
Yes.
6th, 7th inning, they've got good guys. They went out and got Lewis Head too from the Rays, who I like. Like, they've got really good middle inning guys. If you look at Jordan Holloway, by the way, another guy that I actually think is going to be good out of their bullpen, not a good starter at all, but was really good out of the bullpen. I think he had a 0.75 ERA in relief and then a 15 ERA out of the bullpen. So you have the nuts and bolts. You might only need one experienced vet at the back end, and Jansen's velo up 2 miles an hour across the board. You look at his Savant page, it looks like almost Juan Soto-esque in terms of how high up he is in every department. Like, he's back. 2-year deal. You're good. You have the experience. You have a winner. You have a guy that's been around for a while. I feel like people are quick to be like, no, not Kenley after what happened a few years ago. He got himself back here. And again, it's not a 5-year deal. You need the vet. You need the guy that can anchor the back end of the bullpen, and he makes the most sense to me with the closer prowess to help take this team and get some winning culture, some experience, some vets there. Might not be the most impact moves, but I think it will kind of transcend the stat lines and transcend the box score and the WAR, if you will.
Ethan, who's the number one free agent on your wish list?
If they don't make the trades, I'm signing Castellanos.
Let's say we traded for Katel Marte, and then we also signed Kenley Jansen. Who's the next? Who do we need to just put the little cherry on top?
I'm looking at some of these relievers like
Tepera.
I like Ottavino with that slider. I know, like, he kind of struggled last year.
You don't want him correctly.
Really.
There's better guys.
Like,
Chafin.
Yeah,
don't get on.
There's some, even like there are some good bullpen arms. I would really attack this bullpen. I'm sorry. I have, like, baseball has they've been dead to me for a long time. So I'm, like, trying to catch up on who is available on the bullpen market. But I mean, yeah, like, Jansen would be the guy, personally.
I think the answer is just another bullpen arm.
You know who's nobody's talking about that's out there is freaking Joe Kelly, who's pumping 102.
Facts.
Like, there's power stuff out there to be had. I like Archie Bradley still. Even, Brad Hand as a reclamation project, you can probably get him pretty cheap after he signed for big money last year and had a bad year. Andrew Miller, can he find that fastball again? Like, there are a lot of that slider again. There's a lot of good, like, big names. I'm really actually pretty impressed with this.
No, there's a lot
right now.
So I think
there's a lot of big names on the bullpen market right now that I think the Marlins should go out and get. But I wouldn't even be opposed. Like, if they still trade for one of these center fielders, I'm trying to think. I guess you do want Jesus Sanchez to play every day. So I guess maybe you don't want. Sorry, is that getting picked up? It's not, right?
No, you're good.
Okay. So maybe you don't want, to sign another outfielder and then run, like, with either Reynolds or Katel or whoever it is, or, and then Abasayo and then, like, Schwarber, let's say, because you want Jesus Sanchez to play every day. But I really think that, like, if they can't get anything done in the trade market and they have to settle for Schwarber, I don't really think that's settling necessarily. I think that would be a really, really good option for them. And the DH is in play this year. Thank you. Totally forgot about that. But I think they really want to run with Garrett Cooper. I love Coop. I'm not going to say it on Twitter because he follows me on Twitter. So I'm not going to say that I have huge concerns about him staying healthy, and I'll believe it when I see it. But I'll believe it when I see it with Garrett Cooper that he's going to stay healthy, even at the DH position. That guy just finds ways to get hurt. I mean, he hurt himself running the bases last year, and he was out for the season. That's how he hurt himself. He ran into a guy, right? So I'm not sold that that's going to be 162 games of Garrett Cooper. But they do have Lewin Diaz that can DH. They do have Aguilar that can DH. They're going to mix those guys around at first base. You asked me, how is the overall look earlier, Peter? I think it looks pretty good for the Marlins. If they they have to make another big move on offense for sure. And then they do need to get better at the back end. And I think, like I said, I would love to see them move Jordan Holloway to the pen. He was really good when he was in the pen last year, and he's got big power stuff. He's got a big fastball and a nice breaking ball that he can mix with it. I would put him in the pen, and I would move a couple other guys to back there to get some value out of the back end of the bullpen, put some power stuff back there, because they can't keep running out there with Bass and his 93-mile-an-hour fastball or whatever he's throwing up there. They need gas at the back end because everybody else has it. And they're playing a different game than everybody else in the bullpen when they're throwing guys that don't have power stuff out there. So Bender is a good option. He struggled in closing. I really like Zach Pop. I think with another year of experience under his belt, he was a guy they traded for in the Rule 5 draft. I loved him. He showed a lot of good signs last year. With another year, I think he can develop into a pretty solid bullpen arm. He had some good stretches. They had a lot of guys that had good stretches. They didn't have a lot of guys that had good years. Floro was probably the only guy and Blyer was really great. That you could say had good years. So they need guys that are going to be good and consistent out of the pen. So I think signing Kelly Jansen would be a tremendous option for them.
So and before we wrap up, this is the last thing I want to just throw at you guys. Another free agency signing that I thought, would make a lot of sense for Miami is signing Jock Peterson. You can put him in the outfield, you can put him at DH, and he's just got some thump and he's got some charisma. Miami, I just feel like he could be a really good player for the Miami Marlins. So if we're looking at this team, what we did, we traded for Katel Marte, we signed Kenley Jansen, maybe we signed another reliever as well, maybe a Ryan Tepera, depends on how much that would cost. And I think that the Marlins should sign Jock Peterson and we call it a day. I think that's a pretty successful team. Aram, with that team, how we feeling?
Dude, I'd be really happy with that. I mean, this would be a team that, whatever happens. They're flirting with 80+ wins and they're fun to watch. That's the most important thing, right? Like there's hope and there's a reason to watch. And I can't emphasize enough, trading prospects away can make the team at the big league level more fun to watch, which will give them, hopefully a better turnout, better TV ratings, more money, better overall vibe through the entire organization. You got to give to get. And I want to close out with let me give you the 2019 top 10 right-handed pitchers in minor league baseball. Number 1 was Forrest Whitley. Number 2 was Casey Mize. Number 3 was Michael Kopech. Number 4 was Mitch Keller. Number 5, Dylan Cease, Mike Soroka, Sixto Sanchez, Brent Honeywell, Kyle Wright, Hunter Green, right? Some guys that still have some upside, some good pitchers, a little bit of everything, right? These are the top 10. These are the top 10. And for the most part, you would go back and trade any of those guys for some of the guys we were talking about, right? I mean, you would. That's kind of my point here is even if for the guys that ended up working out, if Meyer ends up being a Kopech, no one's calling him a bust, but I'd trade that in 2 seconds for the guys we talked about. It's not a slight of Meyer. It's more so just play the percentages. If you're playing the percentages, which the Marlins need to do, this is the time that you finally have the ability to cash in. Instead of being the team that's selling, you get to be the team that is buying, and the buyers almost always win in the prospect world. It's the percentages. You got to play it. I'm sorry, Marlins fans. Sometimes it hurts a little bit, but I promise there'll be a new darling prospect that you'll hold on to. Heck, that's already Yuri Perez. Let's focus on him.
Yeah. Yep. And see, that's why I was like, when these trades were asked, I'm like, but are they they might be just, it's hard to, contextualize in your own head. You're like, wow, that's just a lot of potential, really strong arms. But I'll say it again, you're trading from one of the biggest strengths in all of Major League Baseball, from the top of the major leagues in Sandy Alcantara all the way down to rookie ball. It's some of the best pitching that we have in our sport. But we just played general manager of the Miami Marlins, and I think we did a really good job. So go check out Big Hall Talk, Ethan's podcast.
There it is. I didn't have to do it. Well, I almost forgot to do it. Yeah, Peter. I just want to say one more thing to just kind of
course, to wrap up
how I would feel. I think the Marlins are at a B- right now with how they've done this offseason. I think the Sandy thing was huge. Stallings was big. Garcia's a pretty good move. Wendell's a pretty good move. They can make this an A+ offseason if they go out and get a guy like Reynolds, like Marte, even like Schwarber, Castellanos, right? They can really, really fucking hit a home run this offseason if they go make one more big time move and then some other littler moves. I would like to see them get another depth infielder so that they don't have to play Isan Diaz or Devin Marrero or Joe Panik, because they still might have to. Their bench looks strong though. Diaz, Cooper, Aguilar, figure it out on one day. Brian De La Cruz, I'm really high on. Wendell, if they can get, I would like to see them pick up one more bat, like depth bat. I think Harrison's still out there. There's no way they reunite with VR. I highly, highly doubt that, but I would love to see them do it, honestly.
I'm good.
Yeah, I know you're good. He makes some boneheaded plays, but I really think that there is another infield bat to be had. I would still love to see them, even though they traded Wendell. I would love to see them sign Josh Harrison still. They have to get better from top to bottom. They can't just focus on the top. They have to focus on the bottom of the roster as well, because it was so bad down there. That was a seller, and they really have to focus on getting better top to bottom, improving the whole thing. They're close, man. They're really, really close. They need one or two more big impact moves. And I'm not saying they're a World Series contender, but they're certainly in the playoff mix. And they just need to be fun next year. If they're going to build a tour, this is going to be like, this next wave is going to be like a 2 or 3 year plan with Garcia to like get up to World Series level, right? So they've had the beginning of the rebuild. Now they're kind of in this middle, and they're trying to get out of this purgatory that they're kind of stuck in, right? If they play some fun baseball this year, like Aram said, they flirt with 80 games, 85 wins, whatever it is, that will be huge for them as an organization to build some goodwill with the fan base, which is a huge thing they still need to do. It's year 4 or 5 or whatever it is of this rebuild. They still have to build a lot of goodwill with this fan base because it was torn down by the last regime. So they can have a huge offseason this year, and it can be a really big home run if they make a couple moves that we talked about today.
Well, we just did 70 minutes on the Marlins, but if you're itching for more, go check out Arm's article on justbaseball.com. And if you think that I traded away all of your prospects and you want to hurt me, you want to send me some messages, you're saying, wow, what an idiot. My Twitter is at PeterAppel23. I will battle you all to the death. What I'm trying to do is just make this big league roster better, because I see the pitching. I see the potential. What you guys are saying, there is areas of improvement. They did, I know it was a COVID short in 2020, but they did make the playoffs. This team has some sparks. Jazz Chisholm is going to be better. I'm expecting another breakout from Jesus Sanchez. Like there are areas that I see where I'm very excited, but if they don't do the trades and if they aren't willing to get rid of any of these arms, then we'll just be stuck in a ever-longed purgatory. So
this is like a 75 win team right now. They need to be an 85 win team come April 1st or whenever opening day may be.
Well, I thought this was a great conversation. Go check out Ethan and Aram out on Twitter. Anything else before we leave here, folks?
Thanks for having me. First appearance on the JB show.
Thanks so much, Ethan. We had a great time. Aram, thanks again. Got your brain moving on some trades. I know it's tough, but hey, we're trying to make this team a World Series contender. But with that said, thank you, everybody.